Hello and welcome to another episode of the Genius Podcast. My name is Karen Doyle, your host and founder of the Genius Project, an initiative for Catholic women designed to support Catholic women towards growth in all areas of their life, spiritual, personal, and professional. We seek to do this through our online courses, the Catholic Women's MasterClass, our live virtual events, and the Genius Podcast. This week's Genius Podcast guest is the very beautiful Monique Mei from Melbourne, Australia. She is the founder of Confident Womanhood, and she is going to share a really powerful story about her journey through some trauma and how the Lord has brought her to a place of healing and restoration, and how this is an ongoing journey. In her story, you will find hope and encouragement, and you will also find the permission to be who God created you to be and to share your story as a gift to the women that you do life with. Before you listen to this podcast, I'd like to mention that Monique is sharing her story of PTSD that's come from sexual abuse background. While she doesn't focus on this for very long, it is a big part of her story, and I just want to be aware that this may be a trigger for some women, so I just wanted to let you know ahead of time. I really hope and pray that you enjoy this episode. As I said, it's a very powerful story of the redemption and the restoration of Jesus Christ. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode with Monique. Well, Monique, welcome to the Genius Podcast. It's so wonderful to have you with us today. You're coming to us all the way from Melbourne in Australia.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yes, and you're just coming out of lockdown down there, aren't you?
Yes, a little bit later than the rest of Australia.
Yes. And you were saying before that it hasn't really affected you as much as some other people.
Yeah, I've been quite blessed in that because we homeschool, my kids haven't really been affected as much, and neither have I. And I'm a homebody, so I like to be at home anyway.
Nice.
So I haven't really felt like I needed to go out or anything. So it hasn't been so hard for me.
Yeah. Good
Than
on
a lot of
you.
other people. So I'm sending like all of the love to everyone that's like come out and been like, yes, finally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, it's such a gift to have you. I've been following you on Instagram. I think I came across your page last year. You started the Genius Project, and I just love some of the content and your vulnerability and your realness with your story, and just your courage in sharing your story with others. And so today we're going to share a little bit about your story and go deeper into, I guess, this experience of trauma that you experienced, and then the diagnosis of PTSD, and just that struggle in your early 20s to, I guess, incorporate that into your life and integrate it into who you are and what you're doing today, because that's really now become a part of your mission to serve women. And so that's where we're going to go in this conversation. But before we jump into that, would you share a little bit about who you are and where you're from, what you do down in Melbourne?
Yes, sure. So I am in sunny Melbourne, as I like to joke about. I have two kids, an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I am currently pregnant with our third, who's due in a few weeks. Married to my husband, Charles, who is a aged care, he's in aged care. And yeah, basically homeschooling our two kids, and originally from Sydney. So I've had quite an experience in Sydney as well, and decided to move to Melbourne for a different lifestyle. But yeah, that's basically who I am and where I'm from South Africa, well, born in South Africa. I like to say born because when people say that they're from there, it sort of implies that that's, the chunk of where they're
Yes.
So I grew up in Australia. I'm very Australian, and that's sort of my heritage is South African.
Yes. You've got that lovely accent. There's a little bit of
a little bit of a dip in there.
How old were you when you came to Australia?
I was 13.
Okay. Was that a big transition for you?
It was a very hard transition for me, to be honest, to come from a completely different culture and change and sort of, looking like I do and coming into a predominantly white culture was very difficult for me.
Was it?
But I think it really I think it challenged me, and it helped me understand the difference in the world, that there are different cultures and different people that look different and all that sort of stuff. So it's very interesting to come at 13 when you're sort of at that stage.
It's such a critical time of your life.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, wow. And so how old were you when you moved down to Melbourne? Was that after you got married?
So this is the second time that we've moved to Melbourne.
Is it?
Yes. We made the decision to move back to Sydney after a few years, and then we moved back about like just over 2 years ago. So yeah, I've been here for just over 2 years now.
Just in time for the lockdown.
Yeah. We came, and then, you know, a couple of months later we were in lockdown, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is like,
welcome to Melbourne.
Yeah, the world just went upside down as soon as we came.
Yes.
But yeah, you know, the world, everybody was in the same situation. So we didn't really feel too bad.
Yeah. And how long have you been married to your husband?
We're 9 years. 9 years married. So it'll be our big 10 years next.
Fantastic. Oh, it is very exciting. We had our 20th wedding anniversary this year.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
It's crazy because I remember our 10th and I'm like, where did 10 to 20 go? It's like, holy moly, that's just gone in a moment.
I think the first 10 years are always quite slow. It's like a slow burn.
And you're really trying to fit, aren't you, together in those first 10?
We're trying to figure everything out still in the first 10 years. And I still feel like we're in that honeymoon phase. Like we're not quite, we've been through a lot of stuff to sort of cram into the first 9 years. I feel like a lot of people don't even touch on the stuff that we've had to deal with in the last 9 years. But I think that's why it's probably gone slower than expected, because we've had to deal with so many obstacles.
Yes. And look, one of those obstacles was, I guess, your diagnosis, wasn't it, with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's interesting because a lot of people think PTSD is something that the Vietnam veterans got, or people that went to war. And I know in my life and my experience walking with women that this is actually a very common experience for women, men as well, who have been through trauma. And so you don't actually have to have been through war to have a diagnosis or experience PTSD. And that was your experience. What age were you? How long ago were you diagnosed with that?
So I was diagnosed in 2017, I believe. And it's funny, like I say, I believe, because my memory of so much in my past has basically evaporated into thin air. And I mean, it hasn't really evaporated. It's basically my mind and myself trying to protect myself from all of these things. So I've blocked a lot of stuff out. But 2017 was the year that I was diagnosed with PTSD. And the first time I'd ever really heard, that acronym.
Okay.
I was like, okay, please.
What is this? Please explain.
I said to my GP, I'm like, explain this to me. I don't understand what you're talking about. And I even remember when I went into my my GP and I had to fill out, the questionnaire that they give you and all that stuff. Her face she went pale and she was like, I just need to make a phone call. And I thought, what is so terrible that I've just, told you that you need to look that way? I freaked out. I thought, oh my gosh, am I dying? Like, what is going on? And she immediately said, like, you need basically like the most intense therapy that we can give you. And I thought, what do you mean? Like, I'm
functioning.
I'm not, there's a lot of people out there in the waiting room that are probably worse off than me. What do you mean? And I'd been to therapy before, but not, it was sort of because mum told me I needed to go.
Yeah.
It wasn't really because I was struggling or anything like that. So yeah, that was the first time I heard it and needed an explanation.
So what took you to the GP office that day? Was it for something else, or were you
Well,
starting to
actually,
struggle?
well, a friend of mine that I'd connected with had told me that she was seeing a therapist and that it was really helping her. And she was talking to me about some experiences in her life and things like that. And I'm in my head going, that's the same thing that I'm going through, or that's similar to what I feel, or whatever.
Yes.
And she said, oh, you should go to your GP and just like ask for resources, or see if there's like, you know, a therapist that you can go and see, but you need a referral. I was like, okay. So I headed on to my GP, and that's pretty much why. Like nothing had, I mean, I had just, and going, like looking back, obviously I had a lot of aggression issues, a lot of anger issues, a lot of emotional detachment, all of that sort of stuff. But I just thought that was normal. I'm like,
You
okay,
were, yeah.
how I am.
Yeah.
Until she started saying, you know, no, it's not actually normal, and you need to see your GP about it. So yeah, that's what I did. I went to my GP, and that got the ball rolling, basically.
Yes. And so was it hard to take that step then to going to get help or seek therapy, or were you quite open to that?
It was hard, only because I felt like I was doing this therapy again. And I thought, but is it really necessary? Like, am I going to get anything out of it? I've been before, like, what's the point of doing this all over again?
So you didn't really feel like there was any big issues in your life that on the surface level?
Yeah, on the surface, I felt like I was just dealing with my emotions in a way that I knew how, going to that walls were normal for people, or like, making dents in my walls, or, yelling at my husband or yelling at my kids. Isn't that normal behavior? I just figured, well, a lot of women do that because we're under a lot of pressure.
Yes.
So I never, ever connected it with anything that was in my past, or anything I had experienced in my past. I just thought, I'm under a lot of pressure. I've got 2 kids, and they're driving me mental. That's what I had to
which they do.
Exactly. I was like, well, this is what happens.
But and I think you're right. And I do think it's often in excuse me, in those years where we're in that pressure cooker. It often happens, whether it's marriage or work or kids or grief and loss, or sometimes it has a way of bringing stuff to the surface. I know my background was in nursing, and I'll gross everybody out, but I love pus and wounds. It's like one of my sick things, but they all knew to send the patients to me with the grossest wounds. But we'd often, if they had like something that was under the skin, there's an ointment you could put on it, and it would bring it to the surface, because they couldn't actually heal and get better until that had come to the surface. And so I think for many of us, whether it's PTSD or whether it's just dealing with our own baggage or our family of origin, like there comes a point in our life, it generally happens late 30s, 40s. It just depends on situations and seasons, but where things start to come to the surface. And sometimes we're living as women, particularly in this survival mode, where we're the perpetual givers, we're constantly in the hustle, we're constantly doing. And slowly these things are coming up, but when we don't have the time and space to process or to understand what's happening, and then sometimes either it's an explosion or something happens. And for you going to the GP that day, where it comes to the surface, and you have to deal with it, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I think this is the way the Holy Spirit works. And for many of us, we couldn't cope with seeing the full picture of everything at a particular age or season. But when we're Christian, when we're following the Lord, he has a very gentle way of just leading us, painful as it may be and difficult as it may be, but in his timing, he will bring that to the surface to be dealt with. And I guess there are some people who choose not to deal with it and they numb and they block and they continue in their dysfunction. And there are other people who are prepared to do the hard work, which is what you've done yourself over the years. So it's quite a journey. It's not easy. And I don't think anyone actually ever arrives at the point of, whoa, abracadabra, I'm done. I've overcome this. It's really this journey. It's an up and down journey of learning to integrate that into who you are and to walk towards wholeness in Christ. That doesn't necessarily mean everything is going to be great, but it means he will heal and restore those areas. And so I'd love you to share with us, if you're open, just about, I guess, often we have a moment or we have an accumulation of things that happen to us which lead to that. For you, that was around abuse, and that happened at a young age for you, didn't it?
Yes. So between the ages 7 and 10, I was sexually abused by a close family member of mine who we trusted, and I trusted, and I loved very much, and thought, that was the person that's going to protect me and keep me safe. So for a lot of my childhood, has been blocked out because of the trauma that I experienced from 7 to 10. So it was very difficult for me.
And that's really what came to the surface for you, which triggered this diagnosis, isn't it?
Which is, when the therapist sort of delved deep and started asking me, about my past and stuff like that, that's definitely the first thing I said, because like I mentioned previously, I'd been to therapy before, when I had disclosed all of this information to my parents, and my mum said, oh, you need to go to therapy. Like, we can't deal with this as a family. You need to see someone.
Yes.
So off I went. And when I think about it, like, I think I've been to 6 therapists, and a psychotherapist as well. I've been to a lot of people. And I think it's important to recognize that sometimes it's not going to be the first time you go to therapy.
Absolutely.
It may be the second or third or fourth. It may be something else in your life that is going to be that trigger for you to actually propel you to the next step and the next stage of healing. Because for me, the therapy was really just the first step. And even now I still see a therapist, because it's important for me to maintain that healing and continue to seek help when I feel like I'm not coping. But when I went to see my GP, that even for me, I was still in denial. I was still like, I can do this on my own. It's fine. The therapist will give me a few tools and I'll do that. And that's okay. She'll be happy I'm doing her work for, however many days I need to. That's okay. We'll do this. And, I'll show everyone I'm coping and I'm doing okay. And I would have these mental conversations with myself to just make sure that everyone, okay, does my husband think I'm fine? Okay, good. Does mum think I'm fine? Good. Do the kids see happy mum? Yeah. But on the inside, I was still struggling. Like, I was nowhere near where I needed to be mentally.
Yes.
And didn't realize that, I think, until 2019. So it took about 2 years for me to sort of really dive into my healing and my inner work.
And so that inner work, and this is something, so whether women have been through PTSD or a similar experience to you or not, we all have to do our work. Right. It's so important. And it's really important for our kids if we're raising children, or in the workplace for our marriages, because those wounds or those things that happen to us in life, whatever they are, they do come out. And there's that saying, that what's not healed or transformed is transferred. And so if we choose, and it is a choice, it's a choice not to deal with it.
Yes.
It might not feel like it, but it actually is a choice. And it is a difficult journey, but when you push through that, Jonathan often says to our kids, there's magic on the other side of fear, when you actually push through, and you do get that resistance, because our brains are actually hardwired to keep us safe.
Yeah.
So our brains do not want to go to any difficult, painful part. And so it's much easier to block and numb and keep going. But when we do push through that resistance, I think that's one thing I really want to encourage women in their lives, is just to push through the resistance, however that shows up. Because if you persevere through that and you do that soul work, that is actually where transformation in Christ and healing does happen. And you've experienced that in your life. And you were saying, yes, therapists play an important part, but you've got a beautiful parish priest, you've got a support network.
Yeah.
So I guess, could you share with us a little bit about, I guess, the role of your faith and how your faith has really helped you in terms of that journey?
Yeah. I would say that's the number one reason why I am healing and because I feel like the journey is always going to be a healing one. It's never going to be, I'm never going to be completely healed, as they say. It is a continuous journey. My faith's the only thing that basically saved me.
Is it?
I've shared the story, I think, a few times on my Instagram page, just because it's such a powerful one for me. I was literally leaving my marriage, leaving my kids. 2019 was a tough year for my husband to deal with the me that I was.
Yes.
I was struggling a lot and very confused as to which direction I'm supposed to be going in. I felt like I needed to be selfish, and I needed to, I say selfish at that point. I was thinking I needed to take care of myself. I need to put myself first. But those are the types of, the type of language I was using to sort of cover up what was really going on. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is not, like, I don't want to be married to this man anymore. Like, he doesn't get me. He doesn't see me, blah, blah, blah. And my kids are too much. And, this is all too much.
Yes.
And I had to go through the worst of it before I had to get to the good bits.
Yes.
And I remember when I came back from an overseas trip, I took an overseas trip by myself because I thought, well, I'm going to, take care of myself and do all these things I love, including be unfaithful to my husband and be unfaithful to my kids and do all of that stuff that, these young women get to do. And I thought that would fix me. I thought if I could just live my life the way I want to do it, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And I remember being on my trip overseas, and this was the moment that I think changed everything for me. Was I was in the shower, and I had already been unfaithful. I'd already betrayed my husband, and it was already over, basically. But something came over me in the shower, an uncontrollable feeling of release. I just cried and sobbed, went on the floor, like my legs couldn't hold me anymore, just cried and cried. And I remember feeling such relief and such just a release of all of the baggage that I'd been carrying for the past, 28 years, all just in that moment in the shower, just flowing down the drain. It was all leaving my body. And I literally felt like Jesus's arms were around me, hugging me in that shower. And it was in that moment where I realized this whole time I thought I was doing this on my own, but I was never alone. I was never by myself. I was just pushing everyone away, including my faith. I didn't want to have anything to do with church. I didn't want to have anything to do with prayer or my Bible or anything like that until that moment. And my eyes opened, my heart opened again. And it was a real discovery of what God's love and unconditional love looked like. And I think from that moment, it changed everything. I could have made a decision to say, okay, well, the damage is done now. My husband won't ever take me back. I might as well just let it go, start a new life somewhere,
Yeah.
But I didn't. I said, I'm going to own up to everything that I've done. I'm going to talk to him and tell him everything and be honest when I get home. And God will take care of the rest.
And how did that go? That's very big.
That was probably the hardest conversation we've ever had to have.
Yeah.
And God really did take care of everything else, because my husband held my hands. He looked at me. He was hurt and disappointed and probably extremely angry. But he decided that he wasn't going to walk away. And I decided I wasn't going to walk away. And we've been working on our marriage ever since then. And quite frankly, my marriage now is the best it's ever been, because of all of that stuff. And, as you mentioned before with the past, I feel like that's what happened. Like, I had to go through the worst pain and put him through the worst pain ever to have all of that stuff come up to the surface for us. And then we could finally put our lives back together. Yeah. And now at the forefront of our relationship and the forefront of our family is Christ. No matter what, we're faithful, we're true to our faith, number one. And I never had that before. I never had that. I was baptized Catholic, grew up in a Catholic church, very strict Catholic family, but never had the faith like I do now because of that moment. And that moment, from my childhood sexual trauma it was like a slow burn all the way up until that moment. And it's funny because I never really connected the two things. I always thought it was my mistake, it was on me, it was all this, until I had to do the inner work, and really understand that childhood trauma affects your brain, affects your entire makeup of your body. It affects so many parts of your life that you really think that all of these decisions that you're making are ones that are rational and ones that are, I'm thinking straight, I'm clear, I know what I'm doing. But in actual fact, it's a rewiring of your brain that you had no idea was happening. And so it was really an eye-opener for me. And it was something that I had to really accept and work through. By no means was it easy, but I feel like that's what gives me the understanding to sort of say, there's a reason why before I make an action or a decision, there's a reason why I'm going to go that way, or consciously say to myself, no, actually, we're going to go this way and we're going to make this decision, because that one wasn't going to be a good one.
That's right.
Whereas before I wasn't able to do that because I hadn't pinpointed that my PTSD was
driving a lot.
Yeah, it was driving every decision I made.
Yes. And I think that you pick up on something really important there, Monique, and that is that so often we are just reacting in life. Now, whether that's just in the day-to-day grind of motherhood, or whether it's on a bigger level where there is trauma and everything in between. So often we just react, and we're often driven by our emotions and our feelings. So we don't feel this way, so then we react and we act out in certain ways. But I think, one of the things that we do at the Genius Project is really looking at that mindset training. One of the things we do in the MasterClass is looking at how we can rewire, I guess, our thoughts in the light of Christ and under the gaze of the Holy Spirit, because there are so many lies and things that we believe, and they're not even, in our consciousness. So much of our self-worth and image is formed at a very young age. And so we're acting out of that place. So whether or not any woman's been through trauma or not, all of us are invited to do that work on ourselves. And I think to become, and the word we use is intentional, and that's what you're picking up on, to be really intentional, to slow life down, to go notice the thought and to capture the thought as it's going through, then looking at the emotion and the feeling driving, and then the behaviors. And like you said, like, we're not the animals. God's given us an intellect, a free will, so we can impose our will and our reason over our emotions. And we often say, love is a decision that you make, not a feeling you feel. And it's actually a decision you make in spite of how you feel a lot of the time. And that's what you're picking up on. But your story is amazing, and there's just such redemption and restoration there, and the power of Christ. And I think when women, I know different areas, I haven't been through trauma myself, but people very close to me, my family have. And when you reach that point, you really, it's quite a challenging place to be, isn't it? Because there's a lack of hope. And I think when we feel hopeless, or like you use the words, things have gotten out of control, I may as well give up, like it's gone too far, there's no hope from here. But we have to remember as Christians that we always have hope in Jesus Christ. And then he can make the most beautiful beauty from ashes. He can restore anything that is broken. And I think I'd love you to just speak into that for a moment, about your experience of, I guess, the power of Jesus Christ and that restoration, because we can do all the therapy, we can do all the self-help. And I believe that is absolutely crucial when you're going through your journey, but it can take you to a certain point. That final point, which is what you picked up on, is the grace of Christ. Can you speak into that for a moment, I guess, about your experience of faith in your restoration and recovery?
Yeah, sure. I think it's beautiful what you said, like, he restores the broken. I did feel like I was broken, and there was no coming back from anything, from my trauma. Like, I felt like I was completely shattered into pieces from a child, from the age of 7. I felt, okay, well, there's no hope for me. No one's gonna love me, no one's going to appreciate me, or I won't be able to have a whole family like so many others because of what happened to me, because I'm so broken. But God doesn't care about our past. He doesn't care about our mistakes. It's important that I had to sort of understand that it was with him that I'm able to heal. It was with him that I'm able to be restored and healed, through his grace and mercy, not my own, not my own, I guess, workings. I wasn't going to go out there and fix myself. It wasn't going to be just me. I had to work with him and alongside him, and really take guidance from what he was saying to me, and what he was putting in my life, and in places that or taking things away. For once, I was listening. I was actually
not
aware.
Fighting.
I was aware, and I was surrendering, and I was saying, okay, I know that your plans are bigger. I know that your plans are for me and not against me. I know that your plans are going to see me through and prosper me and prosper my family. And I know that praying for the things that are for me and not against me are going to help. I felt like I was praying for all the wrong things. Like, I was praying for this life that's freeing, and this life that was easy. But he said, that's not what is for you. That's not your purpose. You went through this trauma at 7 years old to help others. That's your purpose. I didn't put you through the fire for you to burn. I could finally accept that my trauma was the reason for a lot of my decisions that I was making. So I had to accept first. I had to say, okay, yes, I see the error, I see the mistakes, and I see why. So I had to accept that and really take accountability for the mistakes that I'd made in my past as well, and not just forge them onto someone else and say, well, it was because this person hurt me when I was 7. It's all that person's fault. Yes, they're at fault for what they did to me, but everything else I can now change, and I wasn't going to hold on. I needed to forgive. I needed to let go and then move forward with my healing process. And I think once I realized I needed to forgive, not for them, but for me, so that I could heal.
Yeah.
It was a process of just constant prayer. My husband prays over me. It's something that we do together to make sure that we're constantly on the same page, and just allowing the healing and the grace and the mercy of God to come to me, and to hold on to that, and to see that that's the most important thing. I don't think that the outside elements are, or the external, a lot of people give me self-help books. I really appreciate them for. I love that they do that.
Yes.
But I think I've probably read one from front to back.
Yes.
I feel like those are really great resources for a lot of people. They really do help. But for me, I felt like I needed to stay true to my faith, and to stay true to, like, my self-help book is my Bible.
Beautiful.
There's more in there that I could probably get in 3,000 lifetimes of self-help books.
Well, Jesus is the ultimate, like, self-helper, isn't he?
Exactly.
Like,
he's the ultimate motivational speaker.
Yes.
He knows, and the great thing about that is that he knows me better than I know myself. So before I even make the wrong move, or even before I make the right one, he's there. He knows. He's already gone before me, and he's already forged that path for me. So I don't have any fears when it comes to where am I going to be in the next 5 years, or, there was a lot of that doubt, thinking, oh, I'm not going to be healthy. I'm not going to be healed. I'm not going to be okay. But I am, because I place all of my trust in him, not in myself.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big part of it. There's two things I want to pick up on there. The first one is that all that self-help, personal development stuff, which we acknowledge is very good. There's a lot of goodness in it. In fact, I think a lot of that actually comes from faith, but it's just, but it's a little, it doesn't give the full picture and the full revelation of total transformation and happiness. And one thing you pick up on is, you were looking for fun and freedom and happiness, because you were just looking for those things, but in all the wrong places. And even though they seemed easy, it was actually the narrow path, the harder path, that actually led you to happiness, joy, and, transformation. So, Exactly that. And the other thing there is just, you're talking about faith, and faith is just so important when people are going through, I guess, what you've been through, or they've got those difficulties. That therapy does complement the faith, doesn't it? Like you also, like, yes, we can have faith, and we need to pray for transformation and revelation, but we also need to take the practical steps ourselves to help ourselves. That beautiful quote I often quote, St. Augustine: he who created you, without your cooperation, he won't save you without your cooperation. That we need to be active participants with the Lord in our own life and our own healing. So we can't just sit back and say, oh Lord, heal me, and then go, why hasn't he healed me? Exactly. And I think you picked up on a really important thing, like this experience that you had is a part of your story. And I have them, everybody has experiences, good, bad, the ugly, the traumatic. And it's not about overcoming them, as it is about living through them and allowing Christ to heal us and walk with us and transform us, so that we can grow more fully into who he has created us to be. And I think so often he actually uses our mess to then lead us to our mission. And if we don't do that work, and it's hard work, it's bloody hard work. Like I've done it on myself. My husband's done his hard work. Lots of people I know have, and it's not fun. It's ugly. You feel like giving up. It's not like one day you wake up and you're like, I'm all good now. And you would say that too, wouldn't you? Yes. It's constant work in progress. Yeah. But yes, there is this element here of just keep moving forward and keep taking those steps.
Yeah.
100%.
And I feel like I love, the saying that anything worth doing isn't easy. because then it wouldn't be worth it. The reward at the end wouldn't be worth it. If the whole process was easy and a breeze, and we get to the end and we're like, oh, well, that's nice. The whole reason why it's difficult and why God says, follow me, is because it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. And I had a lot of people, like a lot of friends that I've had for a very long time, just disappear and say, well, you're not the person that I thought you were. And I say, no, I'm not. I'm not, because this is the person that I'm meant to be. I was called to be this person, not the person that I was pretending to be most of my life.
Yes.
That person is dead now. The person that I am today and the person that I'm working on every single day is the person that God created. That's the person. I ran away from this person for a long time and was in denial, but and that's why a lot of people, I've got a lot of friendships that have disappeared, and I think we sort of feel like sometimes if that happens, it's our fault, or oh no, what am I going to do without those friendships that I've had for over 20 years? Well, you're going to live. That's what you're going to do, and you're going to forge new, stronger and more healthy relationships that are going to serve you and that are going to walk with you through this journey of healing and not deter you or distract you from your purpose.
Absolutely. And I think one thing I was trying to pick up on was just this idea that like the mess in our lives becomes our mission. And that's one thing I'd love to wrap up, just talking about how the Lord has done that. I mean, you in 2017 and 2019 would have had no inclination or understanding that a few years later you would actually be public about your story and your experience, in the hope of offering hope to other women and that mission. They often say we turn the test into a testimony and the mess into a message. And God wastes absolutely nothing in our lives. In Romans, all things work for good for those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So if we are seeking after him as imperfectly as we do that, and we're trying to be faithful, he will honor that. And he is a faithful God. He's a God of restoration. And so that's what he has done, I guess, in your life, hasn't he? Like, he's really moved your heart towards this sense of mission, of boldness and vulnerability, sharing your story, which is not always easy. But I think when we keep things in the dark and when there's shame around them, that's when they become like a cancer to our soul. So vulnerability is not a weakness. It's actually an incredible gift. And when you're vulnerable, like like you are today, like that is a gift for other women, like giving women permission to either look at those areas in their own life or share their own story, so that they realize they're actually not alone.
Exactly.
So,
that's exactly what we're doing. At Confident Womanhood is we're trying to encourage women to really share their stories and to be encouraged by other women's stories, and realize that all our vulnerabilities and all of our weaknesses that we thought were weaknesses are actually our strengths, and that we can actually speak life into other women. We can
from those broken places that have been restored.
Brokenness that we thought made us hopeless, made us unnecessary in society. It actually is our strength, and we have so much purpose. And I mean, I didn't think that I would be sitting here talking to you on your podcast and sharing my story, but I know that, every step of the way, God has guided me and said, we're going to put this in front of you today. We're going to try and challenge you with this today. And I always say, I can't do it. I'm not worthy of doing that. What do you mean? I don't have the strength. And he says, yeah, you do. This is your purpose. This is what you're here for. And I feel like every woman's story is worthy of hearing, and someone will get something out of it. Even if you think it's a small thing that you've been through, it's going to change someone's life if you just share it. And that's what we're doing. And I feel like, that's my mission and my purpose, is just to continue to tell women to share their joys, share their struggles. No one's perfect. and I think that's important for us to realize that, you know, God was the one that saved me so that I can in turn be around, so I can share and hopefully save someone else just by them hearing my story and just having that moment of clarity and saying, oh my gosh, I need help.
Amen. That's beautiful, Monique. Thank you so much. Your story is just, it's very powerful, and it's such a gift to so many women. And I hope that the women listening to this today really got a lot out of it. I don't know how you couldn't, but it gives me hope. You know, it encouragement, I think, as well. And also just elevating our gaze to heaven, that realizing that Christ is our guiding star. And that he will come to us, like you said, that moment in the shower, often when we're completely at the end of our capacity and ourself and our own resources and our striving and all of those things, that is where he will come and he will begin to rebuild us, as he's done with you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Monique Mei. Ladies, do you know what is just around the corner? It's Advent. Advent is coming. And this is a season of preparation where we really create a space in our hearts to receive the Lord at Christmas. Now, this year has been crazy. It's been like no other year. We're kind of coming out of lockdown, which kind of feels like the start of the year, but really it's the end of the year. And so I have an invitation for you to join us in our Genius Project Advent Retreat that will be coming up. We'll be releasing details on our social media platforms over the next few days, but I'd love for you to be able to carve out some time and space this Advent to really hear from the Lord. And we've got a whole lot of fantastic stuff coming your way to prepare you and walk you through this Advent season. Until next week, ladies, have a beautiful week and God bless you.